Welcome to the show, guys. Joseph Robert Camo, the fantasy football counselor, in the studio online here with Jordan Tucker. What's happening, Jordan?
What's going on, my guy, man? Thanks for having me on.
Excited to have you on, guys. And as you know, this past week, I've been really focused on interviewing beat writers, people that have the feet on the street, that dive into specific teams. Today, I know Jordan's a Cowboys guy, but he's kind of transitioned a little bit to you do a broad amount of sports. Do you not?
Yeah. So I cover all NFL teams, and I live in Kansas City area. So I'm on the radio every Sunday morning, 8:10 WHB ESPN Kansas City, where I do cover the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's my partner team, but my home team is really the Dallas Cowboys. But I cover both.
So yeah, today we're going to be covering the Chiefs with you. We've got a beat writer coming on Monday. I didn't want to double book the Cowboys, so I'm like, since you know Chiefs, why not cover that? And because I didn't have a Chiefs guy lined up right off the bat, this is a perfect fit, especially because you're living in KC now, right?
Yep. I live in Kansas City, so.
All right, so we're going to cover the Chiefs. We got a lot of fantasy football questions, a lot of outlook questions for this year. Obviously, some new moves here. Obviously, no Tyreek Hill. So let's just dive right into it. Without further ado, let's just get into it. Let's talk about Pat Mahomes, because Pat Mahomes obviously had that pinnacle year years ago. And I don't want to say he's completely dropped off much, but that 50 touchdown season hasn't happened again. My first question is, have we seen the ceiling with Pat Mahomes from that year? Or is there still more ceiling to be had? And is there multiple questions here. Two-part. Is there going to be a regression? How big a regression with Tyreek gone? Because he was that big playmaker where sometimes you see Mahomes scramble, chuck it up in the air, and then Tyreek Hill would make some sort of magical route run and come up with the ball. And those big plays could potentially be gone. They've got Hardman, they've got Skye Moore, we're going to talk about all the receivers in a second, but in regards to Pat Mahomes specifically, is he going to take a hit without Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, I think that's the question everyone is wondering. Like, is Tyreek Hill going to be able to thrive without Pat Mahomes or vice versa? Me personally, I don't think he's going to take as big of a hit as people think he is. And the reason why is because some of the wide receivers that you mentioned was added on. So I think that you will not see the huge rookie season Pat Mahomes, the big boom Pat Mahomes, where we saw explosive plays throughout the season. But I think you're going to see a more efficient Pat Mahomes. And I think the Chiefs offense is going to be more balanced with the new wide receiver core, but also with the running game extended. So conversations from Eric Bieniemy, he wants to get back to basics and being more balanced. The Chiefs have improved their offensive line, re-signing Orlando Brown. They got Creed Humphrey in the draft last year as well. So their offensive line is a lot more solid. So I think you're going to see more balance and a more efficient Pat Mahomes, just not as exciting. You'll still see the occasional big plays here and there down the field, but it just won't be as frequent as you're accustomed to seeing.
It's going to be a tough division as well. Obviously, Denver. Yeah. I think people are sleeping on Denver. I think Russell Wilson has a surge this year that we've never seen. I think his career completely gets revived. There's a lot of other quarterbacks in new places, including Matt Ryan, who I think a lot of people are sleeping on, especially for fantasy football. So in regards to that division, we're going to get into fantasy players again. I just want to talk, since we're talking Mahomes, how does he hold up? I mean, Herbert, I think, is the real deal. I think Herbert is better than Mahomes. I mean, down the road, maybe, potentially. I know it's a bold statement. I think Herbert is super special. I think Russell Wilson, could eclipse Mahomes maybe in fantasy points this year. I'm crazy to say that because he's value in drafts. But in the division, do you still think they finish on top? Or do you like Carr? I could care less about Derek Carr. That guy, I don't even know why they re-signed him. The guy made, 2 playoff appearances, lost both, and they re-sign him. That's ludicrous completely. So how do they finish in the division? Do they still finish on top, or is it going to be a little tougher there? Russell Wilson, that type of thing.
Yeah, pre-draft, I would have told you the Chiefs have fallen to the 4th of the AFC West, to be honest with you. But I feel like the Chiefs had a phenomenal draft. You mentioned Skye Moore, but Leo Chenal, some of the players that they got in this year's draft, George Karlaftis out of Purdue. So they got a lot of balance on the defensive side of the ball, which they really needed to get that upside from. So as of right now, I have the Chiefs probably like second in the AFC West, right behind the Chargers. I think the Chargers are not only the favorite in the AFC West, but I see a lot of people have them as favorites at the AFC period. So what they were able to do. But at the end of the day, Mahomes has been there. Kelce has been there.
Right.
You trust Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy. So they have the tenure and the experience to continue to win the division. But like you said, Joe, it's gotten a lot tighter where it's like you're looking at the AFC West and like every game is going to be a matchup. Even if you want to count out Derek Carr, you got to look at what he just added in Devontae Adams, Waller. Like there's weapons all over the place. And so it's going to be a real tight division. But if I had to give the Chiefs where I'm going to put them, I'll probably put them at second right now.
Yeah, Chargers offense hasn't changed much. They're only going to get better. I think their rapport is going to get better.
Mhm.
I think Herbert's put on some weight as well. I'm excited about that division. I'm excited about the young talent, and I'm excited about that revival of Russell Wilson. I think some things when you some things run stale, with certain
Mhm.
teams. You're like, I kind of want to get out of that. I think it kind of ran stale. So, and again, I use this as an example. Maybe it's a bad example or an extreme example, but you look at a guy like the Detroit Lions with Stafford, right? Like
Mhm.
years to wow us, then he goes on the Rams, totally revived him. Now he's like a
Mhm.
whole new person. So I think the same kind of effect happens with Russell Wilson this year. I can't wait to see the division.
Yeah, and when it
Yeah,
comes to Russell and the Broncos, it kind of reminds me of what they did when they won the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. Because you look at the Broncos, they have a young nucleus already there. The defense is already in place. I think the Jared Judy situation has simmered down, so he's going to be a full go this season. They just needed that one quarterback to really put them over the hump, and Russell Wilson was a great addition. So I
yeah.
could see the Broncos rivaling to be as competitive just as the Chiefs and the Chargers as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. It's going to be an exciting season, and we're at that point of the year now where we're like, okay, let's get back to football, and
Yeah.
it's so exciting to watch. I mean, basketball's kind of getting me through, but it's just I enjoy basketball. It just doesn't give me the same type of adrenaline rush football
Hmm.
does. And I love the consolidation of the games. It's Sunday built up. You got a week to look forward to, and bam.
Hmm.
Whereas basketball, it's spread out. You got more games, stuff like that. Even with baseball doesn't get me. UFC fights kind of get me, but that's a whole other topic.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about the wide receiver core here because
Okay.
there's a lot of interesting things you would know better than me. Looking at it initially, I mean, Juju's good. He doesn't excite me. He could resurge here. I don't know if his mindset's there. MVS doesn't really get me going.
Hmm.
McCole Hardman, I think he's fast. I think the talent is there. But the two guys, Marquise Valdez Scaling, again, like it's just not exciting, right?
Hmm.
Skye Moore and Justin Ross. Now I looked up Justin Ross at a looking him up briefly at a Clemson,
Hmm.
put up some decent numbers. He's a big guy, right? So he's a deep sleeper, but who emerges here as the one? Because it's kind of like so much uncertainty here. And I know they spread the ball around. We know Kelsey's kind of the one as well, but
Hmm.
interesting receiver. Like, could Justin Ross emerge? Could Skye Moore emerge? Who's the better out of the two? Does McCole Hardman step up? Could he be as good as Tyreek Hill once was, but was hindered in the shadow of Tyreek Hill? This is
Hmm.
probably the most interesting and the most difficult wide receiver core to understand. Because I look at another wide receiver core, let me give you an example here. Um, you know, Cowboys, which we'll talk about. CeeDee Lamb looks like a clear-cut one, like
Hmm.
Jamar Chase, clear-cut one, number one. I don't have to think about it. With this
Hmm.
one, I have no idea what's going on, even as studied as much as I do. Could you give us a little more insight? What happens with this core here?
Yeah, and I think that's why the Chiefs have the huge question mark going into the season because they do not have a clear cut number one wide receiver. Now, for me personally, I feel like Skye Moore is going to emerge to be Pat Mahomes' number one wide receiver, but he's a rookie, so he's going to have a lot of growth to kind of go through. So I think eventually you might see McCole Hartman kind of lean on. This is kind of his prove it
Yeah.
year because he mentioned he's always been the Tyreek Hill shadow. He's
Yeah.
kind of been thing two, as they call it here in Kansas City. So can he really emerge to be that number one deep threat for Kansas City? The speed is there, everything is there, but he just hasn't proven it. So I would definitely keep an eye on McCole Hardman and also Skye Moore. Conversations what you're hearing right now with Juju Smith-Schuster is that he's getting off to a good start in camp, but I feel like with Juju and MVS, as we call them, they pretty much kind of cancel each other out. They kind of that same kind of big body wide receiver.
Yeah.
So I think that Juju might have the slight lead when it comes to the wide receiver core over MVS. And then you mentioned Justin Ross. Like Justin Ross coming out of Clemson, he was one of the star wide receivers there. Without the injury, he probably would have been a day one, day two pick easily. For the Chiefs to get him as an undrafted free agent was an incredible grab. And you're already hearing Pat Mahomes rave about him. So, I just kind of feel like if you're looking at the depth chart, Justin Ross got to work his way up because they paid Juju, they paid MVS, they drafted Skye Moore early, but I can clearly see that maybe throughout the season, Justin Ross can slowly creep into being one of those top, wide receivers in this core. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting. It's pretty much open for the taking, and I feel like it's going to be a competitive battle at camp, which a lot of Chiefs fans are excited about.
Yeah, is there any inside information, any talk about who Mahomes is going to gravitate to, or the volume distribution? Is there anything like, is he out golfing with Juju? Anything we should be hearing about? Anything buzz?
Not necessarily. I mean, the only guy he's really out and about with is Travis Kelce. So actually, Pat Mahomes just opened his very first Whataburger. It's actually like 5 minutes away from my house. So that's what he's doing right now. And I think Travis Kelce is with them. So when you hear about the in-house relationship, it's just
Yeah.
Mahomes and Kelce. But like I said, he spoke highly on Justin Ross. He's gotten out to a great start. And and Pat Mahomes has spoken about Skye Moore as well. So it's going to be interesting. You'll have to see it progress. I think you definitely got to keep the eye on the Chiefs wide receiver core, not only through camp, but also through preseason.
Yeah, you got over 150 freed up targets now with Tyreek Hill being gone,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's exciting. So yeah, that's the wide receiver core. In my opinion, for fantasy, what I recommend is maybe stash more. His ADP is a little higher, and just get Justin Ross as a late round stash.
Mhm,
Hope for a potential breakout because you got to remember who's throwing the ball. It's Pat Mahomes, so that could be really exciting.
mhm.
Uh, I say stash those guys, and I'm just gonna fade Juju. Marquise Valdes-Scantling has done nothing for me, and he had the
Right.
opportunity with Rodgers. That just doesn't appeal to me. And then we got to take a look here at the running backs. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm fading these guys.
Okay.
Ronald Jones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, fantasy does not excite me to say the least.
Mhm,
Again, Mahomes likes to run the ball himself once in a while and scramble. You got all these wide receivers. He's got Kelce.
mhm,
Do you see, like, is Helaire came in like so much hype this rookie
mhm.
year? He's done nothing. Is he the solution? Is Ronald Jones going to get more of a volume than him? Either way, I'm staying away from both these guys, but I'm just curious to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lead running back either. So I think it's going to be between Ronald Jones and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They did draft Isaiah Pacheco, which I know a lot of Chiefs writers here in town are actually liking. They're liking his size and his speed thus far, but it's just OTAs, right? You really can't judge until you put the pads on. But I
Yeah.
feel like when it comes to the Chiefs running back, once again, it's going to be running back by committee. You might see Ronald Jones kind of get those red zone carries. So if you're looking for someone that's going to probably put up more touchdowns, they might lean towards Ronald Jones in those situations. But as far as a lead dog, yeah, I honestly wouldn't touch the Chiefs running back situation until someone fully emerges.
Yeah, it's gross. I don't like it. I don't like distribution. It
Yeah, and
doesn't
and and that's where it comes to the Chiefs. I think wide receiver wise and running back wise, it's going to be distribution across the board. They're not just going to have that one guy where last year you get Tyreek Hill, that's where the targets are going. This year, I think Eric Bieniemy wants to spread the ball around and be more balanced, and so try to hit you in different directions.
yeah, it doesn't excite me. I can't believe Chad Henney's still kicking as a backup.
Yeah,
That's crazy. That guy's a dinosaur.
yeah, yeah.
Chad Henney.
Mhm.
I don't not expecting big things out of him unless
Right,
God forbid Pat Mahomes gets hurt. Uh,
right.
in regards to Pat Mahomes, obviously we talked about him having a good year. I'm not spending the early ADP. If he falls to me round 5, I still like Herbert a little bit better. I still think there's
Mhm,
more of a ceiling for Herbert. But going to tight end here, obviously Kelce, second round pick in fantasy drafts, as consistent as they come. And I don't want to jinx it, but like he's been like picture perfect every single
mhm.
year. Everything comes to an end. When is he eventually going to regress? Like what is like he's a machine.
I don't think you're gonna see him regress talent-wise, and actually, I think you might even see an uptick for the reasons that we mentioned by them not having a clear number 1.
Right.
He's Pat Mahomes is gonna lean on Travis Kelce earlier in the season. I mean, you mentioned the Chargers, they played Chargers their home opener week 2, so right out the gate, if Pat Mahomes doesn't find that trust between, Skye Moore or Juju or one of the other wide receivers, the one guy he is gonna lean on heavily will be Travis Kelce. So I feel like from that aspect, he's definitely worth a second round pick. Hell, he saved me in fantasy numerous years. So I think from that standpoint, you won't see a downtick when it comes to Travis Kelce. Now, the one thing you do have to be concerned about is now he's going to get all the attention. So how is that really going to work out? So you could see scheme wise where
Yeah.
defensive coordinators are sitting back and saying, okay, I want you to beat us with this rookie wide receiver and Juju Smith-Schuster. We are going to do everything in the middle of the field to take Travis Kelce away from you and see how Pat Mahomes is. So from that aspect, you could see a downtick in the numbers, but I think that Eric Bieniemy is going to be creative enough to find ways to get Travis Kelce involved. So I would definitely get him in the second round.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I think there's definitely gonna be probably more targets leaning towards him this year. He's very appealing this year in fantasy as a second round pick.
Mhm.
Knock on wood, Mr. Healthy, Mr. Consistent, Mr. Pat Mahomes' favorite target. No clear cut wide receiver, but it's so exciting to know that, like, if you can stash a Justin Ross and Skye Moore and have them emerge as the
Mhm.
next Tyreek Hill, it's exciting. And similar situation here. I want to talk Cowboys with you before we go, real quickly. I want
Okay.
to touch on it real sec. But really interesting as well when you look at the Packers, you got
Mhm,
Christian Watson in the same type of situation
mhm,
where this is exciting. They got Romeo Dobbs rookie, Christian Watson. I don't know if you've been following that
mhm.
whole draft,
Yeah.
but Alan Lazard has not really done it. Like, where are 169 targets going? Robert Tunyon, maybe he's coming off a big ACL tear, right? At tight
Mhm.
end, he's a touchdown monster. Packers, similar situation, wouldn't you say? Like, it's Sammy Watkins is there, Cobb. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and there really isn't that guy once again, but you have Aaron Rodgers. So you see in situations not only in Kansas City, but also in Green Bay, where you have this phenomenal quarterback talent, but not just a clear-cut number one wide receiver. Now, I think the intent is that Christian Watson's going to emerge as that number one wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers, but you kind of hearing some rumblings already about drops and inconsistencies. Like I
Yeah,
said, it's early. They're in t-shirts and shorts. So, I'm not buying too
I
much
don't.
into
Yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think once the season is fully there after they get through camp, I think that Christian Watson is going to be the guy that Aaron Rodgers leans on heavily. But once again, they have a lot of question marks at their wide receiver core moving on from Devontae Adams.
our memories are like fishes, and so many people buy the recency bias. But do you remember when I think it was Jamar Chase having
Yeah,
dropped?
yeah, yeah. He had so many drop. It was with the preseason drops. Like Jamar Chase, he drops the ball too much, and you know how fans get fickle, man. They
Yeah.
find a little narrative and run with it.
Yeah. All right. So Chiefs covered, guys. Obviously, so just to recap, Mahomes expensive round 2, where he's coming off round 3 typically.
Mhm,
He's a top guy. I used to get him. I remember I got him in his rookie or second year when he came out. Had his coming out party. I got him in like the 10th round, and people caught on. So I'm not
mhm.
spending the high ADP. When you look at the running backs fading, Justin Ross, Skye Moore stashing, and Travis Kelce could be good value in round 2.
Yep.
So that's your outlook. Now, I really want to talk about Zeke Elliott. I won't go into a full deep dive with the Cowboys. I'm getting the
Mhm,
beat writer there. That's going to be next week.
mhm.
But I really want to talk about Zeke Elliott and the decline of Zeke Elliott, because I look at it statistically, and if there was a chart, you would see a decline in the attempts of Zeke and
Mhm.
I don't even know how to do this, but like an incline of attempts with Pollard. It would kind of look like this.
Mhm.
Pollard kind of going up in attempts, Zeke going down. People are saying Zeke is washed up. Is this the end of Zeke? What is going on? Is he going to get back to a 300 attempt type season? Or well, I just need a Zeke answer, because I just drafted him in a money league in the 3rd round because I'm getting him for
Mhm.
value, thinking in my mind there's a chance that he can still be a top 5 running back in fantasy, getting that volume. Or has he kind of lost that hunger? Is it over for Zeke? Can you explain Zeke to us and the Pollard?
Yeah, I don't think it's Ezekiel Elliott's doing. I think it's Mike McCarthy and the philosophy change. I don't think you'll ever see the high volume Ezekiel Elliott anymore due to the reason that you mentioned of Tony Pollard, because Tony Pollard's in his contract season this year. Now, there is conversations about Tony Pollard playing a little wide receiver, but also some running back as well, because when it comes to Tony Pollard, it's just about touches. But when it comes to Zeke, I felt like Zeke prior to the injury last year, which happened week 5, he kind of felt and looked like his old self, but he had the PCL injury and kind of played through it. So that's why you saw the downtick. But also the Cowboys offensive line was horrible. I mean, you go back to that playoff game, they got dominated by the 49ers front four. So this year with adding Tyler Smith, they're getting Tyron Smith back. You have a full season of Terrence still at right tackle, and of course Zach Martin. I feel like the offensive line is going to drastically improve. And also earlier on, you have no Michael Gallup. Dalton Schultz is kind of going through his thing right now, being franchise tagged. I feel like the Cowboys have no choice but to lean on the run game initially. So I would definitely kind of waver towards Ezekiel Elliott, because the one thing that Zeke gives us that Tony Pollard doesn't is pass protection, especially on 3rd down. That's not really Tony Pollard's thing. So they're going to lean on Zeke, I think, heavily initially. But as far as seeing Zeke being that 25, 30 carry a game running back anymore, I don't see that anymore. You're probably going to get to 10, 15, and it's going to be splitting carries with Tony Pollard.
That sucks. And you said, what's up with Gallup right now? I know Schultz. I heard the news that he's like holding out OTAs and stuff like that. He wants contract or
Mhm.
something like that. But what's going on with Gallup?
Yeah, Gallup. So Gallup had an ACL injury in January of last year. So, kind of gauging where he's going to return. Me personally, I don't feel like Michael Gallup will return until maybe mid-October-ish, November. Now, of course, players heal like Wolverine a little bit sooner than expected, but you kind of give it 10 to 12 months, January, it really just, I don't see him being available for the start of the season in September. So I'm thinking about mid-October-ish where you can fully see Michael Gallup in shape and fully emerge as that number 2 wide receiver. So, if you're looking for sleepers as far as the Cowboys is concerned, Dalton Schultz is tight end, and then also Jalen Tolbert, the rookie that we drafted out of South Alabama.
So Tolbert's really good. What's your opinion on
Yeah,
Tolbert?
yeah, I love Jalen Tolbert. So I did a draft breakdown of him way back in February. He's one of my favorite wide receiver prospects. And so if you want a comparison, he's really like a Michael Gallup type player, but he's a little bit more shiftier. And
Okay.
so I feel like he's going to get a lot of opportunity his way, especially early in the season. Without a Michael Gallup, we lost Cedric Wilson. And so he's pretty much going to be our wide receiver too.
And this is why I'm doing these shows. You know what I mean? Because again,
Mhm.
Jalen Tolbert wasn't really on my radar, but now he is as a sleeper. So we're gonna have
Mhm.
to add him to the
Yeah,
16 draft.
Jalen Tolbert, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you look at the wide receiver core right now. CeeDee Lamb will be the focal point. You'll have
Yep.
Dalton Schultz, and so there's going to be opportunity on the field. And I feel like Jalen Tolbert is going to get that opportunity, or James Washington, but I would lean towards Jalen Tolbert a lot.
Yeah,
Heavier.
Washington's
Yeah,
years to wow me, and I'm not wowed.
yeah, yeah. Right, right. Yeah. So,
But I know he wasn't happy with Pittsburgh for not getting the volume. So he's
mhm.
one of those like feisty guys. Like, give me the ball. You know,
Right. Yeah.
he's
So
one of
we'll see how that works out. It's going to be an interesting season in Dallas. So.
those. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Jordan. How do we find you? How does everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me on all social media platforms at jtuck151. Also, my YouTube channel is CFL Sports. When we cover all NFL, we do lots of draft content. So if you're looking for film breakdowns, we do that there. And then also you can find me on 810 WHB Radio, Kansas City, ESPN. Every Sunday morning with my guy Darren Smith, talking all things sports, NBA, baseball, you name it.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate you. Good breakdown of the Kansas City Chiefs. We're ready to go. Fantasies around the corner, and we're gonna keep pumping out these beat writers and the guys that are on this.
You saved my fantasy season last year, Joe, man. I gotta thank you, man, because I used your breakdown. I got your book, and I won my league, man. But last year I was in like 12 different leagues, so this year I'm just doing like one or two because I was just
I
all
hate
over
it.
the place.
I hate
Yeah,
doing multiple leagues, like because it drives me nuts. Because I was in like a bunch of money leagues, and
uh-huh.
where I didn't have one player, like I just missed them, and he broke out that game. Like, oh, I wish he was on this team too. And
Right.
it's like if you just have one or two teams with similar players, it actually feels like you're an owner. But if you have 10 different teams, it's like,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
pull in so many different directions, then it's like, yeah. So this year I said 1, 2 max, but of course, everyone wants to challenge us, man. We're the measuring stick, so it's like so many league invites. But yeah, I won a few last year, so I got to
I'll just
defend
give
my
you free
crown.
access to 16 rounds this year. Just I'll put your email and I'll give you access if
Boom,
you have
appreciate it,
16
my
rounds.
guy.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for being here, guys. Make sure you guys subscribe, go follow Jordan, and we will talk soon, guys. Thank you. We're out.